Arguably the greatest mixed martial artist of all time and still undefeated, I'm sorry, we're not counting Matt Hamill DQ, Jon Jones is an enigma. Easily the most talented fighter in the heavier divisions and probably the whole roster, Jones just cannot keep himself out of trouble. Today, we're discussing how prosecutors have been given additional time to file a criminal complaint against Jon Jones following his domestic violence arrest. So, stay with us. So, what happened in the latest Jones mishap? Back in September, Jones was arrested in Las Vegas after police were called to a hotel. Amid reports, the former light heavyweight champ had been involved in a domestic violence incident. Jones's youngest daughter had approached security for help after the MMA star had allegedly assaulted his fiancée, Jessie Moses. Police were quickly on the scene and apprehended Jones as he was attempting to flee. His fiancée was found with blood on her face when detectives went to the room to check on her status. When asked what had happened, Moses claimed Jones had returned after drinking with his friends in a belligerent mood. Moses failed to snitch on her man and told investigators that the blood on her clothing and face was from chapped lips. Yeah, right. She also declined the police's offer of taking out a protective order against Jones. Police claimed Jones had headbutted the patrol car and even offered the police officers a fight. The imbecile, who will almost certainly go down as one of the sport's biggest wastes of talent when all is said and done, was charged with 1 count of domestic battery, tampering with a police vehicle, and had his bail set at $16,000. Shortly after his arrest, Jones posted a video of himself in the gym with a message saying he was abstaining from alcohol because his brain can't take it anymore. Probably a wise decision. What do you think of Jones's latest brush with the law? So, what is the latest with prosecutors being given more time to file their complaints? So, as has recently been reported, Jones is now waiting to hear his fate after prosecutors were given more time to file their criminal complaints. This week, prosecutors were granted more time, which is actually the second time this has happened since the incident. He will now appear in court at the end of January next year, should prosecutors decide to actually file charges or not. This is, as of yet, unclear. It is not uncommon for authorities to drop these sorts of cases when the victim refuses to cooperate, which is actually the case right now. If Jones has assaulted his fiancée, there's certainly a case for him to answer here, and we hope the victim doesn't feel too scared to come forward. Jones has since proclaimed his innocence online and has denied striking his fiancée at all. The superstar fighter had just been inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame before the incident took place. Jones himself said on Twitter, "I love how people are imagining the worst possible situation in their heads and making it somehow factual. I never hit my fiancée, and our daughters were woken up after our confrontation. My daughters didn't see or hear us argue." He went on to say, "That's really the only thing I care to clarify. Outside of that, looking forward to moving forward without alcohol. It's the first time in my life where I'm actually ready to quit. Glad to have the support of my fiancée, family, friends, and fans." What do you think of Jones's fall from grace? Pretty sad to see, right? So, what happened with his coach after the arrest? For Jones's longtime coach, Mike Winkeljohn, this incident was the straw that broke the camel's back and decided to end their 12-year relationship. Winkeljohn revealed back in October that he had banned the former light heavyweight champion from his gym in Albuquerque, New Mexico, until he shows that he's gotten his act together. Probably fair enough. If it was Jones's first transgression, then there could be an argument that Winkeljohn was acting pretty unfairly. But this is far from Jones's first mishap. Jones, responding, revealed that he was heartbroken and said on Twitter that he was really hurt to lose the support of someone he respected so much. He then thanked his ex-coaches and went on to claim that his own personal fight was continuing. Whether that was literal and he was referring to fighting, or more figurative, referencing his booze problems, we're not quite sure. But given the post a few days later, where he mentioned he was giving up alcohol, we think probably the latter. Jones has since taken up a place on the team at Phoenix's Fight Ready gym, featuring ex-flyweight champ Henry Cejudo. It's safe to say he's in good company. So, what's next for Jones? Stay tuned to find out. As we know, Jones hasn't featured in the UFC since February of 2020. After being pushed pretty close by Dominick Reyes, his multiple legal and personal issues have made sure of that. Recently, though, the ex-champ has declared on social media that he'll be returning to action this month, but not in the UFC. He will be taking on Bellator star Jake Hager in a grappling match at Fury Pro Grappling in New Jersey on December 9th. Jones said, "Breaking news, I'm excited to announce I'll be competing for the #1 grappling organization in the world, Fury Grappling. December 9th, I'll be in New Jersey competing against WWE superstar and undefeated Bellator heavyweight Jack Swagger. This one will be pretty interesting. Hager Whitaker, who also competes for the WWE promotion as Jack Swagger, turns out for Bellator MMA, where he's currently unbeaten. You would expect Bones to take this one without too many problems, giving his undeniable talent, and it would be good for him to get back to action and keep his tools sharp. After Jones's announcement, Hager took to his social media platforms to announce that he hadn't actually signed the contract yet, so we're yet to see if this one goes ahead. What's the timeline for his UFC return then? There's been some news this week. As we said earlier, it has been almost 2 years since we last saw Jones in the UFC, but the man has spoken this week on his potential return, and he's only thinking big. He has targeted April as his return, and is keeping a keen eye on the title fight between Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane. He said, "I'm looking to fight somewhere in April, possibly Madison Square Garden, or a total opposite date, possibly July at International Fight Week. Those are the 2 dates that I'm kind of eyeing. I think it'll depend on who wins in January between Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane, and we'll just take it from there." We know Jones is bulking up in a bid to move up to heavyweight, and it will be interesting to see how he fares. He was in talks to return to UFC action before he was arrested back in September, but negotiations dragged on, and it's yet to be seen what Uncle Dana does with Jones, but it will almost certainly have to wait until after the prosecutors make their decision. Jones has revealed that he is in tremendous shape, and is still excited to be repping Albuquerque. He gave props to his new gym, but revealed he will be repping both gyms moving forward. It will be interesting to see who Jones fights on his comeback, but do you think he deserves to walk straight back into an immediate title fight? Who do you think Jones should be facing next? Let us know below. There's some down under beef now, so stay tuned. Kara France, who faces off against Cody Garbrandt at this weekend's UFC 269 event in Vegas, recently appeared on an episode of Fox Sports Fight Week, where the atmosphere was a little unsavory to say the least. Panel member Robert Whitaker was visibly uninterested in the interaction with the Kiwi, Kara France, who had called into the show via Zoom. Whitaker, who will be facing off against middleweight king Israel Adesanya next time out for his title, has very little love for the champ, and Kara France is an active teammate of Adesanya. Whitaker showed very little interest in engaging him, as he's close friends with Stylebender. He said of the obvious snubbing, "I told you at the beginning of the show I'm just going to let him do his thing. He's on that side of the fence. He's part of Team Izzy. They're close friends, and I just don't want to get in his hair." Whitaker, a former middleweight champ himself, said he didn't want to come across as fake, because Kara France probably has very little time for him as well. He also said that if he wasn't scheduled to fight Izzy next, then things would probably have been a little different. Also on the panel was Alexander Volkanovski, who recently dismantled Brian Ortega in their featherweight title battle. Volk is also a member of City Kickboxing, where Izzy and Kai both train, but Whitaker and Volkanovski are old friends, and the featherweight king said he understands Whitaker's mentality. As always, thanks for joining us today, and remember to stop by next time. Why not do us a favor and share this video with your UFC-loving mates? Take it easy, guys.